Alrighty, welcome back everyone. We just broke down that A&M and Miami games. Really crazy performances and huge for A&M, puts them in the CFP conversation, and Miami playing with a little bit of fire but found their way out there with a win. Huge win for them and definitely puts them in, again, the driver's seat for the ACC going forward. But let's get into the rest of the results because there were a number of things that happened around the sport that were a little bit overshadowed with how crazy the weekend was. But I'll start with Ohio State. This team is really good. They're really good. And I understand, they haven't necessarily played the marquee opponent that they will this weekend against Oregon. This team executes at a ridiculously high level. The defense looks like there's 12, 13 guys out there. They fly around. They make every single play you could possibly want. Caleb Downs is an absolute bruiser. They do everything you possibly could want them defensively. And frankly, when you hold someone like Caleb Jackson to 86 yards total with a 26-yard run mixed in there, you're doing exactly what you should do. They're incredible all pretty much at every single level. The defensive line is just ridiculous in every single way. So they're doing everything you could want, and Will Howard is following suit. He is doing incredible things. Made a mistake early trying to hit Emeka Egbuka on an out route, but at the end of the day, ended with as many touchdowns as he did in completion. So 21 for 25, 209, 4 touchdowns, 1 pick. He's doing everything you could possibly ask if you're an Ohio State fan, and frankly, doing all of the things that a lot of people worried that he wasn't going to be able to do when he went to Ohio State through the portal. And then Jeremiah Smith continues to be a problem. He's an absolute beast on the outside, one of those guys that you can try to cover him as best you can. You're probably not going to succeed. He's an absolute monster, and we'll see what he can do against someone like Jabbar Muhammad this upcoming weekend. But man, this kid is hard to stop. And then you have Emeka Egbuka just playing ridiculously good football on the outside. This running back duo is what it looked like in the in the preseason. One of the best in the country, the very best in the country, and this is as good of a team as you will find. I can almost promise you that. Now, are they the number one team in the country? Is Texas? Is, any other team you want to put up there? I don't know. But at the end of the day, they were playing ridiculously good football. They were doing everything that you possibly could ask them to do, although against inferior opponents. We'll obviously figure out what exactly they're about this upcoming weekend against Oregon. And frankly, it's going to be by far the biggest test that they've had all year. If they answer it and pass with flying colors, it's going to be really interesting to talk about this team going forward. They might just be a Death Star rolling through the rest of the season. But remarkable performance here. I think started a little bit slow in the first half, but even in the first half, didn't feel like this one was in doubt remotely because of how good that defensive group was playing for Ohio State. Moving forward to Georgia, this was not what I expected from Georgia, if I'm being totally honest. Kirby Smart even said it in the start of this game was, we want to start fast. We want to be able to get up to an early lead and kind of hold on to it for the rest of the game. And this game never felt like it was in danger by any means for Georgia, but this wasn't necessarily what I wanted. If I'm a Georgia fan, this wasn't necessarily what I wanted going forward because the reality was it was all just a little bit iffy. They were pretty much the team that you saw against Alabama. Now, they were a little bit more capable on the offensive side of the ball, and Carson Beck made a couple of plays that he needs to make. Frankly, him and Mike Bobo badly need to get on the same page about the way that they're going forward, and it's all over the place right about now, and this offensive line is very different without Tate Ratledge there. So there's a lot of things to figure out. There's no two ways about that. This defense is still great. They're still doing exactly what they need to do. This back end is becoming a little bit more Malachi Starks than everyone else, and they very much need to figure that out, especially when they head to Texas, because frankly, if you hand them this defense going forward into Texas, Steve Sarkisian is going to eat you for dinner, and he's going to do the exact same thing they did to Michigan to you, and going to give you the second loss on the season. So Georgia's got some things to figure out. This is not what I expected from this team. I thought they were going to be a lot more crisp. I thought the defense was going to play pretty much lights out, and they were going to roll in this game. They rolled. They got the win that they needed to get and responded the way that, frankly, you need to respond against a team like Auburn. But, man, this is not necessarily the team that I expected them to be right about now, and they got a lot of stuff to figure out before they head to Austin in a couple of weeks, because if they head there this way, it's going to be a nightmare for them. I can almost promise you that. But let's get into this Oregon team, because that's the team that's going to be facing off against Ohio State this upcoming weekend, and they continue to make steps up in their competition. They continue to answer the bell. Absolutely incredible what they've been able to do on this football field, and frankly, this team is just really good. I understand the way they started the season was not great, and Dillon Gabriel to start this game was not perfect by any means, but at the end of the day, they're doing everything they weren't able to do early on in the season, particularly running the football really effectively. Ran for 5.8 yards per carry, 213 on the ground total. They did everything they possibly could have wanted, and this O-line is just getting better and better. So Ohio State's going to have their hands full, And that O-line's going to have their hands full on Saturday, so it's going to be incredible to watch that unfold. But the defense is great. The defense looks a little bit more like what Dan Lanning's defense is supposed to be, which is fly around, play very physical at the point of attack, play really, really good against the run, which is exactly what they did in this game. They were all over the place. They're doing pretty much everything you expected from them going into the season. And frankly, Oregon got a lot of crap from a lot of people, including myself, as they started this season. And I think some of it was warranted, but frankly, the way I'm looking at it right now, if you win football games, congratulations. I'll move forward with you feeling confident in what you can do going forward, because this is a nightmare out there, and getting the wins is the most important thing, and Oregon was able to do that. So obviously a game where you felt like they maybe would have won by more, but who cares at the end of the day? You get that win, you move forward to that Ohio State game, and then you win that 1-1, and you're very much a title contender, maybe the title contender going forward. So Oregon's doing exactly what you would want. Not necessarily the start that they wanted, but making their steps up, doing exactly what you expect going forward, and then they have the big one this upcoming weekend. Ole Miss responded in a huge way this weekend, winning 27-3 against South Carolina. This was one of those games where South Carolina pretty much lost it from the jump, if I'm being totally honest with you. Now, Ole Miss did go 3-and-out, but then South Carolina decided it was going to run the ball on a 3rd and 6 and then run a fake punt. I don't know what went through Shane Beamer's mind, but that's what he did, and it was a very, very bad decision and pretty much buried this team for the entire game. Now, one of the big time things here is Rocket Sanders not being able to go was huge. He's one of those players that gives you an identity on offense, gives you a guy that is going to fall forward on that 4-yard run. He's going to get 6. On that 2-yard run, he's going to get 4, and totally changes the complexion of this offense. So not necessarily what you wanted. Only got him 8 carries and 9 touches because of the flow of the game, as well as coming in with a little bit of an injury. They badly needed him. Only gained 3.5 yards per carry, and frankly, a lot of that was just inflated because of the way that Ole Miss was playing defense. But overall, this Ole Miss defense is suffocating. They're doing a really, really good job pretty much against every single team they face. Now, they'll have a big-time test this upcoming weekend against LSU, so we'll see what they're really made of. But being able to, play the defense that you pretty much did against Kentucky, but play a little bit more consistently against South Carolina has to make Ole Miss fans feel a lot better about where they are going forward. I think when you talk about the South Carolina team, you always talk about the pass rush, and it's what we talked about last week. It's the main reason that I picked South Carolina in this game, and Ole Miss held them to 1 sack on the day. It was absolutely incredible and definitely something that they very much needed from this offensive line and will continue to need it going forward. And then this is one of the more boring results of this weekend, and frankly, I think that's exactly where Lane Kiffin wanted to be. I don't think he wanted to mess with the crazy results of this weekend, so able to handle business, absolutely huge for them. Definitely some things that they have to figure out, no two ways about that, but when you get a win, especially after the loss they just took, you'll take it and you're one with it. Now they got a huge one this upcoming weekend. They lose that one, then we're probably back at square one with Ole Miss. But moving on to SMU, this was one of the bigger wins of the entire weekend. It just didn't matter to pretty much anyone out there. This is a huge win for the SEC, or the ACC, excuse me. SMU asserted themselves as probably the 3rd best team in the entire conference. Pretty comfortably, honestly, the 3rd best team in the entire conference. Kevin Jennings was absolutely incredible in this game. 21 for 27, 281 through the air, 10 carries, 113 on the ground, 1 touchdown. He was awesome. He was absolutely incredible. Made that Louisville's defense just have nightmares the entire day pretty much, and SMU has so many weapons on their offense. They have 3 wide receivers that went over 50 yards in this game. RJ Maryland had 6 catches, 83 yards. Bashad Smith had over 50 yards rushing. 2 others had rushing touchdowns. This team is all over the place, and it's going to be really, really hard for ACC teams to get a beat on who's going to beat them in any given day, because they got a lot of guys that can absolutely do that. And I think SMU's set themselves up in a really, really good spot. They do have a bye week, and then the only other game that they might not be favored in is against Pitt. And frankly, I think they probably will be favored in that game because it's at home. So it's going to be incredible to watch this team going forward. I think when you look at SMU, the ACC is a little bit crowded up top with Clemson and Miami, and they're going to be tough to beat, but they have every ability to make some noise in this. And then as for Louisville, I think really tough loss. It's definitely one that is going to be really hard to recover from, frankly. You go to Virginia, which has been playing some good ball, but you probably should be able to win that one. And then you got Miami. So it's not necessarily going to get easier for Louisville. I think this was one of those games that they probably needed to win if they were going to go forward and make some noise in the ACC. And then we had this game on Friday. Do y'all remember this game? Isn't that wild how long ago it feels? But UNLV did take a loss in overtime to Syracuse. This game was weird. It was all over the place towards the end of that game, and there were a couple of calls that I did not love in the end of that game. A couple on UNLV side, a couple on Syracuse side, but the reality is Syracuse gets the win. LaQuint Allen is an absolute problem. He's incredible. One of those guys that fourth down contact balance was out of this world. It was absolutely incredible. 19 carries, 71 yards, and a touchdown on the ground. 9 catches, 58 yards, and 2 touchdowns through the air. He was their offense on Friday. He was absolutely incredible and definitely one of those guys that is going to have plenty to say going forward. And Syracuse, frankly, gave themselves another shot in this game. They gave themselves a shot to possibly make some noise in the ACC. Now, the rest of their schedule is manageable. Have a couple ones that are going to be tough, but at the end of the day, you go 2-0 coming out of your bye against NC State and Pitt, you have every ability to make some things interesting going forward. As for UNLV, I don't know if this changes who they are. I don't know if this changes the ability for them to make a CFP run, because I think if they win out, they would very well be my favorite to make it to the CFP. So a tough loss, no two ways about that. We'll see how they respond. But at the end of the day, I don't know if it changes who UNLV is or what they can do this upcoming season. So that's got to make you feel a little bit better. Not necessarily the result you wanted by any means if you're a UNLV fan, but I think you still have every ability if you win out to make the playoff and be the G5 representative. But let's take our final break here. And when we come back, we just got to get to everything else. There are a number of other performances that we have to break down right after this, so stick with us.